Welcome back, Bears fans. I'm Jerry with Da Bears Talk, and today we are going to be talking about the stadium situation. I know it's not very exciting, especially in comparison to all the draft talk that we've had, but it is very important. We've gotten some big news in the past couple days, so I wanted to talk about it. Finally, make a video on my thoughts on where I think they should go, and what we know and the kind of the direction that it's going. So if you've been liking the videos, like the video, comment if you disagree or if you have any differing opinions. Or if you agree with my opinion. And then don't forget to subscribe as well. So let's get right into it. Most recently, and the biggest headline that we've gotten from Kevin Warren, the Bears president, is that they plan to put a shovel in the ground at the lakefront. And so if that is the case, and that was when asked, if there is still a chance for Arlington Heights. They said, we plan to put a shovel in the ground at the lakefront. So he's fully moved focus. Now, I think the one part of that might not be true is they did actually already get Arlington Heights to budge on the tax issues because they had a lot of disagreements on, the proposed, tax situation. And there was a compromise that Arlington Heights sent back, and they went, oh, well, we can lower the taxes to this. So it's kind of similar into, Ryan Poles not wanting to let everybody know what he's going to do with the first pick, which is almost undoubtedly going to be Caleb Williams at this point. But Kevin Warren kind of has to keep his poker face and show that he really wants to go forward with the lakefront, whether that is what he wants to do, which I do think it is, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But even if he wants Arlington Heights, he has to make it look like they are fully prepared to go and try to get Arlington Heights to budge the other way. And it can only benefit them as far as the situation goes. Kind of puts the leverage back in their hands because it seemed like Arlington Heights, right after they bought it, that it was set in stone. They're building there now. They're moving out of the city. Arlington Heights kind of had an opportunity, it seemed like, to screw them over, but then, we get a change of mayors and a little bit more conversation, it sounds like, and newer ideas blossomed, and now we're leaning more towards a stadium by the lakefront. So here's another a comment that he made, and this is Kevin Warren again. So he said, when you have the combination of the museum, the lakefront, the beach, all the architecture, and most of all, and what makes Chicago special is the people. And so when you can mix all that together, you get great momentum. It's going to require a lot of work as we proceed forward. And I think from that quote, that is where it really shows that he is passionate about it being in Chicago, and he probably thinks that the ceiling for the, greatest stadium scenario, I mean, having the skyline in the background with the lakefront, I mean, that is top tier, just, photo-esque type stadium. And there aren't many places that have opportunity to have, the right on the water sort of view. So, and I really do love the idea. The other interesting question is that so they'd say the current stadium would go down. The pillars from the original Soldier Field, that is actually labeled as a monument. So that can't be torn down. So it sounds like, I might have been reading it wrong, but it sounds like they could potentially be used for the museum. I would have assumed that they would have tried to use some of that space for parking lots because their plan is to use the space where the Waldron deck is and the south parking lot, which, if you're not familiar with the Soldier Field layout, is just south of the stadium. And it's basically like a mini parking garage and their south parking lot. Now, that is where most of the parking is. So, unless you park, in the little side streets, but that's most of the parking. So where the stadium is now, that would have to almost be like, it would have to be turned into parking. Like there wouldn't have any other option, especially if they do plan to have any other events or restaurants or amenities or whatever around. They're going to need a significant amount of parking because the big benefit of Arlington Heights is they were proposing ideas like SoFi Stadium, where you can build this gigantic complex that has all sorts of restaurants and probably gambling, and a place where, if the father and the son want to go to the game and the wife isn't as interested but wants to spend time there, that's kind of how they framed it. You can do that, and they wanted to have like nail salons and all sorts of different stuff over there for this massive complex on Arlington Heights, which I actually really like that idea. I thought it's a genius idea, to build a big complex like that, because that can help with a lot of your money. Now, getting into the money situation, the Bears did openly say that they would be willing to provide $2 billion to assist to assist the city in funding the stadium, which is a lot of money, but nowhere near enough money for what they want to do. So that's going to be an interesting thing. I also think an area where they can benefit a lot, and this is something that Kevin Warren did with the Minnesota Vikings Stadium, is they had what they call pull tabs. Now, pull tabs, if you don't know what they are, is basically like a kind of like a scratch off, where you just kind of pull these tabs off, and it sounds like they could be electronic too, where you pull them off, and it's basically gambling. It's a little gambling thing, but from almost those alone, obviously there was other things, but that was one of the biggest factors from selling those at the stadium. They actually paid off the Minnesota Vikings Stadium 23 years early. And they saved a bunch on the money. So that, started to make me think, is there any world where, the Bears could purchase the land? And it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. I don't think it's even going to be possible for the Bears to ever own that land. I don't know if it would work as if they get more revenue because, they're providing $2 billion. So I tried to look more into the financials. You can't really find that. But yeah, so with Kevin Warren's history of, being able to fund the stadium in Minnesota and build the beautiful one that they did, I think that lends to what he could do for Chicago or Arlington Heights. They put a lot of money into that land. They'd be putting a lot of money into that stadium, and I think they would make a lot of money back using those pull tabs. And I think that's a great resource, and it historically has shown that it's been great, especially with how it helped for Minnesota. The other thing is Kevin Warren does still continuously talk about how he has a very beautiful piece of land, 326 acres in Arlington Heights. And he talks about how that, we're in a great situation because we still have the option to build on the lakefront, as well as we have this beautiful land in Arlington Heights. Could they still build some sort of massive complex of some sort, or sell it to, I don't know if the White Sox, they do that, but they've been talking about wanting to do a stadium. And I haven't really looked too far into the details on White Sox or potentially another team of some sort. I don't know if, they could sell that land. Like, the UFL is not going to have enough money to build something there, and it would probably be too extravagant for the UFL. So I'm not sure exactly what kind of leverage they're going to have, especially once they have a stadium built. Because it was a great land for a horse race track. And I don't know, do they build one back up potentially and, bring it back as like a new horse race track? I don't know. It's a possibility. But I think it's a very interesting situation. I think I would hope that I have a similar mind to a lot of people, that the perfect scenario is they get this beautiful stadium that has great parking and great, access to the roads and everything in Chicago on the lakefront, with, as Kevin Warren said, with all the architecture and the museum and the beach and everything. I think it would be a great site, and I think that is probably the perfect scenario if the Bears can get this dream stadium with a dome. Also, I didn't mention that yet. They did mention that they do want to go for a dome, which I'm really not a huge fan of. I really like that the Bills are building a stadium and they're not having a dome. I think about all the opportunities for snow games, and I think the elements have been a very important part of Chicago, and I think you could probably do like a hybrid, roof dome. Like, I really like, I know it's not a great example, but I really like Lucas Oil Stadium for the Colts. I like how, you can kind of open the roof up and you've got a good, a good option there, still experience the elements, or at least on a sunny day. They probably wouldn't keep the roof open for a snow game or a rain game. But I like having that option at the very least. So it is unfortunate if they're, dead set on doing a dome. I'd like to see it opened up, because I think, like, I know for me personally, when I go to a Cubs game or something, there's just something I love about sitting in the bleachers and on a really nice day, and I think it adds to the experience. So I really hope that they don't stick to a dome. I'd love a opening and closing roof, but we'll see what happens. with a dome, you also probably get stuck, especially with the space around the stadium. You probably get stuck with turf, which I'm not a huge fan of, although they are pushing a new type of turf that supposedly is even safer than grass. I don't believe it. I think probably should just stick with grass, but that's for another conversation. But yeah, that's pretty much all we know about the land and the stadium so far. Like I said, I think that the best case scenario is on the lakefront in Chicago. I think Arlington Heights was a cool idea, and I honestly wouldn't mind it, especially if they were able to build this like massive complex like SoFi. I think giving people other things to do and making it more than just a football game and making it a full experience, I think could lend huge. And I think I would say they have better opportunity to do that in Arlington Heights. So I think that would be one area where they have the leg up because there's significantly more land to play with there. But I think the best case scenario is in Chicago. So let me know what you think down below. If you want them to stay in Chicago, or you like the idea of having maybe a better location slightly for fans. I know that's another thing. Highways. You kind of have to figure that out with Arlington Heights because the city is already, although the city traffic is not great, it is at the very least set up with plenty of highways directing to it. I think Arlington Heights could easily get overwhelmed. But let me know what you think down below if you think that the Arlington Heights location is better or if it's Chicago. Maybe there's something that I missed that you think was very important to this whole conversation that they're having. So again, like the video if you liked it, comment down below, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and bear down.